All right, so in this video I want to share with you a few quick, simple, and easy ways to decrease anxiety, improve your health, and become overall more productive. And this is going to be accomplished by mitigating and overcoming what I call information procrastination, and understanding that you are either making a decision or you're not. So what do I mean by that? Well, a great example is you, instead of spending hours a day online reading about the best exercise and comparing different exercise programs and listening to podcasts and videos and reading different opinions, in that time, you could just go somewhere nearby and go for a hike for an hour. Or you could just go on YouTube and type in 10-minute high-intensity interval workout and do that, and then job done. So all of that mental tension and anxiety and worry and weeks of month and stress and tension and anxiety are all mitigated because you just accomplished what you needed to accomplish in a very quick, simple, and easy way. Another example is, let's say you want to sleep better, or you want to be more productive during the day, or you want to improve your cognitive ability, or you want to get rid of anxiety. Instead of staying up late at night watching whatever on Netflix or YouTube or your phone or social media, just stop and go to bed early. And even if it takes you a while to fall asleep, just lay in bed in the dark and chill out and relax. And if that doesn't work, do that, but instead of laying in bed, take a hot salt bath, put like 2 or 3 bags of Epsom salt in there, and then really sedate yourself, and then go in your bed. And then eventually over time, you'll learn a different habit, and you'll eventually probably stop craving the stimulation and the nervous system overwhelm that actually puts you in the situation you're trying to get out of. Another example is instead of spending hours reading about the perfect diet and whether this one's better than that one and this one's better than this and this is the new trendy one and this is the latest and greatest and there's science and blah, 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 you could just go to the store, go to Whole Foods or an organic store, anything that is near you that actually has high quality food, farmer's market, whatever, buy vegetables, buy protein, take it home and cook it. Like in the simplest and easiest way, and then now there you go. And then you eat it, and then you feel comfortable and you feel satisfied. Job done. You don't have to worry about comparing and contrasting a million different vegetables and supplements and proteins and this and this and this. You can just do something very simple, direct, and easy. And this all sounds really stupid and obvious, and it is, but it also really isn't for a lot of people, especially the more and more time goes on, the more and more things progress, the more it seems like people are forgetting and discarding basic life skills. A great example of this is I've had friends that I talk to, people that I know that are, real spiritual practitioners, super dedicated with their yoga and meditation, their vegetarian diet, and have been for a decade. And then they start telling me about, their high attainments and achievements. But what they're actually describing is just basic human functioning. So a clear example of this is one person was explaining, all their definitions for presence and mindfulness and the purpose of yoga and meditation and the power of this, this, and this. But at the end of what they were just describing was basic level empathy, basic level, like if you're a person, you have a conversation with another person, you hear what that other person says, and you understand it and you communicate off of that. So I'm like, what you're putting up here as grandiose and elevated is actually just normal and basic. But because your approach is so distorted and you're so far removed from anything balanced, that the scales become so twisted and distorted. So overall, this is the major underlying point of this video and the stupid examples is, instead of spending hours waffling and doing nothing and basically masturbating and procrastinating, find the simplest thing that actually leads to accomplishing the task that you want to accomplish. Another great example I can give you based on people that I actually know, which is I know 2 people. One is a very successful entrepreneur, multimillionaire, many times over, created many successful businesses, within, I don't know, 5 years. Another friend that I've known for 10 years has created basically no successful businesses, has scammed people, lied to people, cheated people, done basically shady things because they still live in poverty, but they are absolutely 100% always doing goal setting and visualization and mindset and success technology and peak performance and biohacking. They're doing all these things, but they never actually did any of the things that really get you from A to B. Like my conversation with the previous person that is the millionaire, they expressed a little bit of regret, like, I just never got into like gratitude or visualization or law of attraction or goal setting because I was kind of just too busy working on my businesses that I didn't have time for the other things. Like, so it's just a different shift in mindset. But I would say the vast majority of the time, this is what people are doing and why they are having anxiety and stress and lack of productivity, because they're doing things that don't actually matter or don't get from point A to point B, or they perhaps don't even know what A and B are, and they're just even more confused. Because it really does come down to that a lot of the time, is actually being a little bit more clear and understanding what you're actually trying to do, and understanding what you actually mean by the things that you say or the things that you think you want. So another great example of this to illustrate the absurdity is I heard a story about this guy who swore off shoes. You know, he was reading about how bad modern shoes are and they destroy people's posture and they change your gait and they do all these things, and he, you know, mixed it with some hippie stuff and naturalist, whatever. So he was like, you know what, I'm just not going to wear shoes anymore. And the guy literally just didn't wear shoes anymore. So then a few months later, his feet are beat up and cut and shattered and all messed up. And he's talking to another friend of mine, and he's like, man, you know what I realized? What I need is like something that goes on the bottom of my foot that would like protect it from the ground. And my friend's like, oh, you mean like shoes? And he's like, no. Shoes are terrible. Shoes are bad for you. You know, it's just part of the man trying to keep us down. He's like, but I was thinking if it's like maybe thin rubber and then somehow it ties over my foot so it stays on my foot. And my friend's like, oh, so you mean shoes? He's like, no, not shoes. And they just kept going back and forth, and the guy never realized just the insane, absurd, ridiculous situation he found himself in. But the point of that is he arrived at the wrong conclusions based on the wrong assumptions and the wrong analysis, and then made his life more difficult, caused himself harm, caused himself pain and suffering for literally nothing. And it got him literally nowhere. No productive outcome whatsoever because of all the incorrect assumptions and incorrect analysis and putting all the things in the wrong place. And then what did he probably eventually do? He just came around back to doing what he was doing from the very beginning, just bought some regular shoes and whatever. So what I'm saying is that story, which is hilarious, that illustrates the level at which a lot of people operate and how they approach problem solving a lot of the time, especially when it comes to their health, whether it's diet, their exercise, their relationships, their sleep. All these things are oftentimes approached from the absurd type of mindset that thrives on correlation rather than identifying any type of real causation. So please, let's all not be like the no shoes guy. Like, I can think of two other examples of this. A friend of mine was talking to a longtime vegan, and the vegan was like, man, you know, I just realized like I'm hungry all the time, never really satiated. I just have to eat so much, but I have indigestion and I feel bloated. And I feel like I wish there was like a food that was very like calorically just like dense, but you could eat a little bit of it and get a lot of energy out of it. And my friend was like, oh, you mean like meat? He's like, oh, no, not like that. No, not that at all. So he just kept using all these adjectives and terms and try to describe this type of food, but it was just describing meat, basically. And then another example, I saw this where it's like an anti-vax person is in this anti-vax group, and they're like, you know what would be great is if there was just like obviously vaccines are terrible, right? Like we're all done with this because it's the pharmaceutical blah, 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 blah. But what if there was a way to introduce just like a small amount of a virus to your immune system so you could build an immunity to that? People are like, oh, you mean like vaccines? So what I'm saying is this is just oftentimes the level at which people are operating at. Another example, this is the last example, was, and someone literally said this, they asked me a question on a live stream, like, man, I was reading green tea was good for me, but is it possible that like maybe someone could be allergic to it? And these types of questions are so honest, are so commonplace. And also at this point in my life, I've oftentimes will have the foresight to not take people at what they actually say, because I would say the vast majority of time what people say isn't what they actually mean, and the question that they're asking isn't really the question that they're asking, whether they realize that or not. So you usually have to dig deeper depending on the situation. So in that situation I said, oh, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, okay, so I was just brewing some green tea, and I brewed, I think, 6 tablespoons, and I steeped it for like 10 minutes. I drank it, it just made my stomach hurt. So from that absurd situation, their deduction and their level of analysis was, oh, I guess just maybe I'm one of these people that's allergic to green tea. Not that the green tea was maybe low quality or that you brewed it in a way that it was never, ever, ever, ever intended to be brewed. It's like, oh, am I allergic to salt? Why do you ask? Well, I put a couple tablespoons in my food and it hurts. So I think I'm just allergic to salt, or like I read online salt's poisonous, so that just must be why that I had that reaction, so I just shouldn't use it. No, that's dumb. Like salt is great, but you're supposed to just use a teeny amount. Like green tea can be great, but you're not supposed to take 6 tablespoons and brew it for 15 minutes. So the problem is a user error. And yeah, I mean, again, the point of this is just illustrating different stories so you can hopefully get an idea of different ways of incorrectly associating correlation with causation. I mean, I could keep going. I could get into a lot of political issues where people do the exact same thing, but I'll prefer not to because people just get even more offended. But the point is, and what the useful takeaway is, to listen to these things and hear them and apply them into our own lives and reflect. What are we one of these stories? Odds are probably yes, because this is just how the mind works. Critical thinking and intelligence and understanding causation is not inherent for a lot of people. It's a skill that you have to typically learn and develop. So it's not worth beating yourself up because you may or may not have it. It's just basically understanding where you are and then how to improve that and perhaps go somewhere else. Because it's just a skill like anything else. But it's one of those things that is really important, and I think understanding it can easily improve productivity, health, decrease anxiety, because a lot of times we are creating our own anxiety, we are creating our own misery, we are creating our own suffering, we are imbalancing our own physiology, we're making ourselves sick and miserable, and all the things. And we don't necessarily have to, and we have the ability and the choice to make different choices, but oftentimes don't. So sometimes it's a matter of, just awareness, because obviously these things are all true and it's easy to maybe feel boo-hoo about it, but that's also kind of a waste of time. It's better to be a little bit more pragmatic and just understand where you are and figure out how you can get to the next place that you want to be, and have a little bit of sense of humor and take it a little bit more lightly. And yeah, so anyways, hopefully that's helpful. I think I said it was going to be a quick video, but it's like 15 minutes, so clearly I need to take my own advice. Anyways, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.